Okay, so when a new disease pops up, we all tend to think the answer is going to come from a lab, right? From science. But what if the most powerful tool we have is something else entirely? Today, we're diving into why working with the local community is the absolute key to handling a public health crisis. It's often overlooked, but it's so critical. Let's get into it. So let's just start with a really big question. When we see public health efforts just fall flat during an outbreak, what's actually going on? Is it that we don't have the right medicine? Is the science wrong? Well, sometimes sure, but way more often, the real reason is a lot more human than that. And right here, this is the whole thing in a nutshell. You can have the most brilliant, cutting edge science in the world, but it's completely useless if the people you're trying to help don't trust you. Trust is this fragile, invisible thing that a successful response is built on. And if it's not there, the whole thing just crumbles.
Okay, so if trust is the goal, how do we actually build it? Well, the answer is something called community engagement. Now, I know that term gets thrown around a lot. It can sound like a buzzword, but we're going to break down what it really means and why it's not just some nice idea, but the absolute bedrock of any effective response.
So let's look at the official definition here from the World Health Organization. What I want you to notice are two keywords, early and ongoing. This tells you everything. Community engagement isn't something you do after you've made your big plans. It's a real partnership that has to start from day one, and it has to continue through every single stage of the process. And, the stakes couldn't be any higher. The WHO doesn't say this is helpful or a good idea. They say it's essential. Essential, not just for building trust, but for preserving social order itself. It makes sense, right? When people feel like they're being heard and respected, they're just so much more likely to get on board with the things we need to do to keep everyone safe. Okay, so how do we actually do this? How do we put it into practice? Well, the WHO guidance gives us a really solid blueprint. It's all based on four clear ethical pillars that act as a guide for building that trust. So let's dig into this framework. And here they are: inclusiveness, openness, transparency, and accountability. You should really think of these as the four legs of a table. If you take even one of them away, the whole thing gets wobbly and unstable. So let's break down what each one really means. First up, inclusiveness. This is pretty straightforward, but it's so important. It means everyone who might be affected gets a voice. It's about actually making an effort to reach people where they are, using things they can access, whether that's the radio or text messages or old-fashioned community meetings. And, this is critical, it means paying special attention to those vulnerable groups who are so often ignored. Their input is absolutely vital. Next, we've got openness. And this slide, this just nails the difference between talking at a community and talking with them. Being open isn't just announcing decisions you've already made in a back room. No way. It's about having a real two-way conversation. It's about being willing to listen to other ideas and, here's the key, actually being prepared to change your plans based on what the community tells you. All right, our third pillar is transparency, and this is about so much more than just throwing facts at people. It's about explaining the why behind a decision. And just as important, it's about being honest when you don't have all the answers. Admitting that things are uncertain doesn't make you look weak. It actually builds trust because it shows you respect people enough to tell them the truth. And that brings us to our final pillar, accountability. It's simple, really. For trust to even exist, people have to know who's calling the shots. They need to know who's responsible. And there has to be a clear way for them to challenge those decisions if they think they're wrong. That's what keeps the whole system in check and ensures power is being used the right way. Now, you can't have a real conversation about community engagement without talking about a huge player in all of this, the media. They are such a critical partner, and they have the power to either amplify the truth and help build that trust we've been talking about, or they can amplify fear and completely tear it all down. So, during a crisis, the media has this profound ethical responsibility. Their job is to report what's happening accurately and factually. A massive part of that is communicating risk in a way that's real and honest, but without sensationalizing it and sparking a huge panic, because panic can be just as dangerous as the outbreak itself. But listen, this is a two-way street. It's not all on the media. For journalists to do their jobs well, the authorities have to hold up their end of the bargain. That means giving them access to good, timely information, maybe even helping them get up to speed on complex science, and most importantly, treating them like a partner in getting the word out, not like an enemy. So, when we pull all of this together, what's the one big thing to remember? It's this. Handling an outbreak isn't just a medical problem, it's a social one. The ultimate takeaway is that any response that's going to work has to put people and their communities first, period. And let's be absolutely crystal clear about this. Community engagement can never, ever be just a checkbox you tick off on a to-do list. It's not just another step in the process. It is the entire foundation. Without that foundation of trust, the kind you build by being inclusive, open, transparent, and accountable, even the most amazing scientific strategy is pretty much destined to fail. And that leaves us with one last, really important question to think about. Doing all this during a crisis is essential, but by then, you're already behind. So the real challenge for all of us is this. How can we start building these systems of trust and communication right now so that our communities are already heard and empowered before the next crisis ever begins?